Thank you very much, liners, for your company. Welcome back to the channel Transmission Lines Engineering TV. Now we will talk about other type of crossings which do not necessarily require permits, but rather explanatory drawings. I refer to the crossings between our new transmission line with other existing either the distribution or transmission line. Basically, the crossings of high voltage transmission lines with a distribution line do not really require any type of documentation or permit. It is only required to meet the vertical clearances from the lower cable of the transmission line at maximum temperature condition and creep towards the distribution line of sight. Later on we will see this topic of line of sight when we reach the topic of structure's location. It is worth to mention that there are clients who, despite being a distribution line, might request this type of drawings in detail if the regulations in some countries calls for it. The following should be applied for crossings between transmission lines. In the case of crossings between transmission lines at high voltages, we will first discuss the technical or logistics recommendations to be followed, although each country will have their very own regulations. So we have as number one, a higher voltage line will cross over a lower voltage line, preferably never otherwise. As number two, in the case of crossing of lines at the same voltage level, the new line will cross underneath the existing line as long as the space to ground level allows for it. This is to avoid the need to modify the existing line by scheduling an outage maneuver. An outage is the action of switching up the line from service to perform construction maneuvers or maintenance with the energized line. As number three, a single circuit line in a horizontal formation will cross underneath an existing line with a vertical formation. This is to avoid to use extremely tall structures, which will mean even perhaps the design of completely brand new structures. When carrying out the survey of these crossings, the line designer will require the following information of the existing line to cross over. The lack of any of this information will result in the suspension of the design within this area until the whole data is available. So let's talk about them one by one. As number one, we need the name of the line and circuit number. It might be that you cross one or more lines simultaneously on the same span. As number two, we need the location of the structures adjacent to the crossing, as well as the identification of the structures numbers. Number three, as always, we need the crossing angle. Number four, we need the attachment points on each structures of all cables involved. Conductor cables in each phase, each circuit, shield wires, OPGW, in a word, all the cables existing within the crossing with their identification. Upper phase, middle phase, lower phase for the case of lines with a vertical formation, or left phase, central phase, and right phase for the case of line with horizontal formation. Number five, we need the reading of the cable sacks or heights of all cables involved at mid-span. Number six, very important, ambient temperature. As well, very important. Number seven, we need the date and time of the survey. Now, these last data of ambient temperature, date and time are data of vital importance to build up the data of the thermal calculation in the conductor cables. The ambient temperature is not the same as the real temperature of the conductor due to the effect of energization. So I think I have to emphasize the temperature, date and time. It is useless to perform the crossing survey to generate the geometry of it if it doesn't have the ambient temperature, date and time. If you don't have this information, it is not possible to perform the design. Don't having this information and nothing, it's exactly the same. For the topic of the ambient temperature, the survey provider must have environmental thermometers, since sometimes in the absence of these thermometers, they take as a base the temperature of the total station equipment, which is completely wrong, since this is the temperature which refers to the internal temperature of the equipment of the total station, and the designer, of course, is not interested in that temperature, unless, very unless, that the total station equipment has a measurement mode to register the external or ambient temperature. In that case, it will be acceptable. If this is not the case, the reading should be taken with additional or external devices. So, it is advisable to make an outline of the crossing and in fact of each crossing in the annotations field book. This is a very accurate record of the survey. With this data register accompanied by its drawing scheme, the designer will have enough information to load this data into, let's say, PLSCAD to perform the necessary simulations for a good design with precision and, of course, quality. So I think this can give you a pretty detailed overview of the information to request the surveyor for a crossing of this nature. Again, I hope this information will serve you as a guide for those who are starting in this industry, as well as an reinforcement for those who already have time working on this one. Thank you very much for your attention, for your visit. Don't forget to subscribe and leave me your comments. Transmission Lines Engineering TV, training to power the world.